What's up everyone, welcome back to the channel. So a few days ago I did a video about the Lectric XPeak. It's this new e-bike that Lectric came out with earlier this year. And it seems like there's some people that are having some problems and some issues with this bike. So about a week ago I made a video where I was kind of just highlighting some of those issues. I watched a few videos from other channels on YouTube to kind of highlight some issues that they're having with this bike. And it's just kind of an interesting situation to me. So let's dive in a little bit. I wanted to do another video because there's some new information that became available. I've been talking in the comments on YouTube with some of these other channels and other people that have this bike. So I thought I would do another video. There's also a correction for my previous video that I wanted to address. So let's talk about this Lectric XPeak a little bit more. I'm going to try not to insult anybody. I didn't drink as much coffee today as the last time that I made the last video, so let's try and keep this one under control. So, first things first. In my previous video, I said that the Lectric XPeak has a death wobble. And some people were telling me, well, oh man, death wobble, like that's kind of sensationalized terminology. Like, why are you calling it a death wobble? Well, it's not something that I invented. It's not like a term that I came up with. If you go on YouTube and do a search for death wobble, you can kind of see examples. This is a truck. So this isn't a term that I came up with. This isn't anything new. It's a term that's been around. When a vehicle just starts wobbling uncontrollably, this death wobble, that's a term that has existed, in the past. It usually has something to do with like the vehicle's weight distribution and the suspension. As you can see, it's a lot more scary on a truck or like a motorcycle, but it's not something that I would want happening on my e-bike either, right? So here's an example of a death wobble on a Jeep. Okay, so what's going on here? Let's get to the part where it's wobbling. Oh, there it goes. So that's kind of scary. Alright, so that's a death wobble. It's not a term that I invented. It's nothing new. It happens to motorcycles and trucks and all kinds of vehicles. It's usually related to the weight distribution and your suspension and stuff like that. So, it seems that some people are having problems with the wobble on the XPeak. Whether you want to call it a death wobble or just a wobble, that's up to you. But, so let's go look at this. So one of the best new videos since the last time that I've found is this right here, this short. This is from Palm Solo on YouTube. Matthew.
Hello everybody, this is Matthew.
Alright, so this is Matthew Palm Solo. So here's his channel. I have never watched his videos before, but it looks like he's got some e-bikes here, so maybe subscribe to Palm Solo. I think that's kind of a Star Wars themed name. But anyways, so here we are. We're on Palm Solo's short video, and it says, Lectric XPeak step through. Do not attach rear basket. Alright, let's go. So he says he's testing the Lectric XPeak. He's got both models. Came with the cargo kit, included a front rack and a rear rack. I'm just going to narrate this because I don't think you guys can hear my speakers from my microphone. So he's riding the XPeak step through here. He said when he was riding it without any racks, it was totally smooth, no problems. So he said the front rack seems fine as well. So then he says he added some weights. He added the rear rack, and then he put some weight on the rear rack. And so then now he says it started wobbling. Really uncontrollable. actually scared his wife. Lectric is taking some actions and they're offering $150 for people who bought this bike. I think they're offering people, they're kind of, well, Lectric, we'll talk about this, about what Lectric is doing later on in the video, but apparently they're like offering people like $150 worth of accessories to kind of like shut them up about this problem. But I don't, like, to me, we'll talk about that more later. We're gonna get to that. All right, so there's that. There's the Wobble. This guy, this is a completely different channel. We haven't looked at this at all yet. This is a totally different dude. Never watched any of his videos before. And he's saying as soon as he added the rear rack to the bike and put some weight in it, the bike started wobbling, scared his wife. And now this guy is saying, do not attach the rear basket to your XPeak step through. Right? So in my previous video, I featured a few clips from the Ride with Lance channel. So Lance has been riding his XPeak, and I've been watching his videos, and he's trying to fix this wobble. And apparently, I think he was able to fix the wobble by taking the racks off as well. I think he stripped down the bike. I think what he did is he completely stripped down the bike. And then, actually, this is a different video, I think. But I think what Lance did is he took the racks off of the bike and it was working a lot better for him. And then he also put a different saddle and some different bars on the bike. Here it is. So he stripped the bike right here in my XPeak stripped. And then, so now he's modified it with different saddle and a suspension seat post and some higher bars. And apparently that solves some of Lance's problems just by changing the geometry of the bike a little bit. Let's see if he shows it here.
All right, so there it is. I have stripped down the Lectric XPeak step.
All right, so here's Lance. And so Lance, he's taken everything off of his Lectric XPeak. He's taken all of the racks and the accessories and the fenders, and he's stripped everything off of it in hopes that he can get rid of this wobble that he's been experiencing. Right? So, I mean, these are the kind of things that people are doing with this bike to try and make it workable and try and make it rideable. And I just think it's just kind of fundamentally not right. You shouldn't have to, like, when you buy a bike that's advertised as a mountain bike and it's advertised as being certified to the most rigorous e-mountain bike standards and certifications, like, it's just fundamentally not right that the bike can't handle the rack that it's supposed to be able to have on it. Like, it's got rack mounts and this rack that was designed just for this bike. And now they're telling people, don't put the racks on your bike. Don't put any weight in the racks. So let's think of an analogy for this. Like, imagine you're going to buy a car. So you go buy a car, or let's say you buy a truck, right? You're buying a truck because it's got that truck bed in the back. And you want to be able to put some things in the back of your truck, right? So you go and you buy a truck, and then you're putting some stuff in the back of your truck, and you're driving down the road, and it's wobbling uncontrollably because you have something in the back of your truck. And then the truck dealership is telling you, well, don't put things in the back of your truck. Like, we know it's a truck, and we know we said it's a truck, and it has a truck bed, and you should be able to use it like a truck and put weight in the back of your truck bed and drive it down the road safely. But we're gonna say don't use the truck bed. Don't put any weight in the truck bed. Don't do that. That's our suggestion for your new truck that you bought. So, like, if you bought a truck and they were telling you don't put anything in the back of your truck, like, doesn't that just seem like fundamentally wrong? Like, doesn't there just seem like there's just something like very wrong with that? With the company asking their customers, like, hey, you bought this bike, it's supposed to be a mountain bike, we've got these racks for it, but we don't put the racks on there because something bad might happen. Like there's just something wrong about that. There's something wrong about that. And anybody with like any degree of common sense left in their brain should be able to pick that out and say, like, that's just wrong, right? It's just wrong to sell a bike that's supposed to be a mountain bike. It has all these accessories and racks and stuff designed to be able to mount on the bike, and they're telling people don't do that. And they're stopping, like, they've stopped sending out the front rack to people, I think. And now we'll talk about this more at the end, but it seems like what they're doing is they're telling people don't use the front rack, and then they're trying to give people pannier bags to put on their rear rack. And it doesn't seem like a solution. We'll talk more about that at the end, right? So here's Lance. He's stripping his bike down. To me, that's just fundamentally wrong. You shouldn't have to do that. And, you know, Lectric is just kind of like trying to persuade people to be okay with their purchase when it's just like, Lectric, like, something isn't right here. Like, it doesn't seem like it was tested with the accessories. You know, it doesn't feel right for Lectric to be telling people, hey guys, like, don't put the rack on your mountain bike that we designed for the mountain bike. Like, it's just fundamentally wrong, right? So let's move on. We're getting stuck on that one. So here's Gary's e-bike adventures again, right? So we watched some videos from Gary last time. He's got the Lectric XPeak, and he's got the high step, right? So Gary, he has the high step, and originally I thought that the high step version of the XPeak doesn't have the wobble because it has that top tube on it, right? But if you go look at Gary's videos, Gary has been so kind to test the Lectric XPeak high step for the wobble. So that's in this video, my Lectric XPeak high step wobble uncovered, right? So he's got a video. So it looks like Gary, so for this test, Gary, he's got the rear rack on here, and then he's probably got, like, man, I'm going to say that's probably at least 30 pounds worth of batteries. He's got 2 triangle batteries on that back rack. So there's probably at least 30 pounds on the back rack. And that's how Gary, I mean, when you're making an e-bike that's designed for this kind of stuff with racks and is supposed to be able to carry some weight, like this is what people are going to do. Right? So, I mean, this should be no surprise to Lectric that people are putting weight in the rack on this bike. So let's see how it wobbles. Okay, so apparently Lectric has sent Gary a personal letter, and they're kind of reaching out to him, and they're trying to help Gary out here. But, I mean, if we go look at this, like, Gary, he's taking his hands off the bars to demonstrate here.
Check the through axle, and everything is fine with that. But like I said, with the baskets on, it's riding out fine without the weight in it. So, you know, it's not an issue.
So it seems, I can't find the part of this video where he shows the wobble. It might be right at the beginning or something, I don't know. But Gary, he's got some good videos on the wobble, on demonstrating the wobble with the high step version of the Lectric XPeak. And so he's having the same problems. Like, he's trying to put some weight on this bike on the rear rack, and it's wobbling around. And he's also got another video where it's called, his most recent video, dealing with the Lectric XPeak wobble, keep or return. Right, so in this video,
I put them on the side like I said I would. So
in this video, he's changed how he's mounted the batteries onto his Lectric XPeak here. So he's got both the racks back on here, and then you can see on the rear rack, he's kind of like mounted these batteries on the side of it, like where a pannier bag would go. So the weight of those batteries is a little bit lower on the back of the bike now. And from what I remember, this didn't solve the problem, that moving the weight lower. I think that he was still having problems with it wobbling. So let's go try and find that part.
See what happens and get out on the main road. I'm letting it go here, and you can see it's still shaking it.
So he's going 13 miles an hour right there, pretty slow, and he's taking his hands off the bars, and you can see it shaking there.
Should we have to live with this problem at all?
So Gary's asking, should we have to live with this problem? I would say no, like not at all. Like this is not something that people should put up with. So let's go take a look at this thing wobbling out on the main road for Gary. So Gary's got a good point here. He's thinking about like down the road if he wants to resell this bike. You know, if everybody knows that, well, like, hey, this Lectric XPeak, like that's got the problem with the shakes. You know, that can affect the resale value of the bike too. So that's a really good point that Gary has. You know, that's something that you have to consider.
Oh yeah, I'm going to let the bar go. And
all right, so here's the wobble again.
Shake though, but, you know,
right, he's saying that like since he's lowered the weight on that rear rack, the wobble is a lot better. But I mean, if you look right here, he's going 17 miles an hour, and it still looks like it's pretty bad.
I'm not grabbing the bar right away.
So some people have made the argument that, well, why are you riding? Some people have made the argument, why are you riding without your hands on the bars? And so that's true to an extent, but the thing is here is that when you're riding slower without your hands, it's going to be easier for the bike to wobble. But if you're going a little bit faster, like let's say you're going 25, 30 miles an hour on this thing, you know, it's probably going to be more prone to wobbling. So let's say you're going 28 miles an hour and you take one hand off of your bars to like ring the bell or to, you know, to do something. Like sometimes when you're riding a bike, you got to take one hand off of the bars just briefly to hit the bell or to do something or whatever. And if you take your hand off the bars for a second and all of a sudden the thing just starts wobbling and you're going a little bit faster, like that could be dangerous, right? Like, I mean, if you get the wobbles at 15 miles an hour, 20 miles an hour, it's not as big of a deal. But what happens if you're going 28 miles an hour down a hill, down a bumpy hill or something, and you take your hand off the bars for a split second just to ring the bell, and then your bike is wobbling out of control? You know, you could imagine it can get dangerous pretty quick. And this, like, the faster that you're going, that wobble is going to be more pronounced. So Gary's got some good videos where he's kind of working through this wobble issue with Lectric XPeak. And my opinion is like this isn't something that people should be tolerating. It's not something that you should be putting up with and accepting. Right? I'll get into that a little bit more. There's just a little bit more I want to show you here. Alright, so here's Richard again from eBike Reviews. He's got the Lectric XPeak step through. I featured Richard and his XPeak and a few clips of his content and his experience with this bike in my previous video on the topic. So Richard did reach out and he had one correction. In my previous video, I was saying that the bike was like falling apart because they were riding the bike at eBike Reviews, and the first time that they rode the bike, they were just like riding at like 15 miles an hour, and all of a sudden the rear rack bolts sheared off, and then it like came loose and it was rubbing on the tire, and I thought that was pretty insane for a first ride. But Richard reached out to me in the comments and he said that that was damage from shipping. So I just wanted to make that correction and make sure that that I got that information out there. So that issue, that was shipping damage. The rack breaking and the bolts shearing off on Richard's bike, that was from shipping damage. But so here today when I woke up, Richard at eBike Reviews, he's got a short video. So let's see what Richard has to say. It says Lectric XPeak sending it back.
Here at eBike Reviews and Adventures. Well, I'm sending it back.
He says he's sending it back.
Just like a lot of you out there, you're having.
And just like a lot of you out there having problems.
The Lectric XPeak, it's got the pad and wobble.
So he says it's got that wobble, so he's having that problem too.
And it's a little dangerous to be riding.
And Richard feels that it's a little bit dangerous, and I would agree with that.
Lectric has agreed to take this back, give me a full refund.
Sounds like Lectric has agreed to give him a full refund.
So here's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be doing our first ever boxing up.
So I thought that was pretty funny. So Richard here at eBike Reviews, this is the first time that he's had to box a bike up and send it back. So that, I think that's, you know, it's kind of a pain. You know, it's like you buy an expensive thing and it's a lot of money and it's a big box and it's heavy and, you know, you gotta unbox it and it's you gotta put some work into putting it together, and like the last thing you want to do is have to return an e-bike. But in this case, I mean, I think that people should really be returning this bike, and I think that Lectric should probably be going out of their way to help people return the bike if that's what they want to do. I mean, it sounds like Lectric, like you gotta save the original box, and like their Lectric's, you know, their return policy, the same return policy probably applies to the XPeak. But I mean, I think this thing should probably get recalled. You know, like the pedals striking the front fender and the front wheel when you barely turn the wheel, it's just not acceptable for a bike that's supposed to be a mountain bike. A lot of people are arguing like, oh, well, most of the time when you ride an e-bike, you don't turn the bars much. And I mean, that's just another thing where it's like people, you know, people are just incredible what they will justify, and what it's just like, guys, you bought a bike and you can't turn the wheel, you can't turn the front wheel without it hitting your feet because the pedals are so close, and it's just a design flaw that cannot be fixed. Like, it's a problem with the bike that can't be fixed. Like, it's like the pedals are like 2 inches away from the front fender and wheel. Like, shorter crank arms are not going to help it. You shouldn't have to put your feet further back on the pedals and pedal in some special way, right? Because most bikes have like 5 to 8 inches between the front wheel and your foot and your pedal. So, I mean, look, like, you can just see right here, like, this bike has a serious design flaw, and it can't be pedaled very well because your foot is going to hit the front wheel and the fender. So, I mean, this thing, it's got problems. It wasn't thought out. It wasn't tested thoroughly, right? It got certified somehow, but it wasn't tested, apparently. Like, Lectric must not have anybody that weighs more than 150 pounds or is taller than 6 foot that tested the bike, because it seems like those people are having problems. So, Richard, good for you. Send that thing back. Nobody should have to put up with this. Lectric should be bending over backwards to take these bikes back from people, because they are just asking for a lawsuit here. It was just like, what was it, just last year? Not even half a year ago, where Rad Power had the little girl fall off the back of a rad bike, and they're getting sued, and it's like, now Lectric has this bike out here, and your foot is hitting the front wheel when you turn the bars, and it's wobbling around and uncontrollably. It's just kind of unbelievable. So I saw today that Jeremiah McIntosh, he's got a video now where he's comparing the Lectric XPeak wobble, the frame wobble, to other bikes. So he's got a whole bunch of, he's an e-bike reviewer, he's got a whole bunch of other step-through bikes. If you're interested at seeing the Lectric XPeak wobble compared to some other bikes, Jeremiah did a pretty good video here where he compares the XPeak to these other bikes. I think Jeremiah, he's being a little bit generous. You know, I think he's kind of got, you know, he's got a relationship with Lectric that he needs to uphold and maintain. And he's, I mean, I call them e-bike beggars, but you know, he's just one of those people where they send him e-bikes for free, and he's probably not gonna say anything too harsh or critical. So, you know, take this with a grain of salt. He's got a pretty good comparison of the XPeak versus some other bikes. And then also, e-bike reviews, he did a comparison where he compared the XPeak to some other bikes as well. So he's got this video here, Lectric XPeak e-bike wobble comparing step throughs. So he's got that. I thought that was a really good video too. I like Richard's channel because he reviews bikes, but he's not so much of like an e-bike beggar butt kisser. Like he has some critical things to say about bikes. I appreciate that about Richard and at e-bike reviews, and I like his channel. It's just hard for me, like sometimes when I'm watching some of these other channels where they're getting all these bikes sent to them for free, it's, you know, like they can't say anything critical and they can't say anything too harsh, so they're just gonna kind of sit on the fence and they're gonna say, okay, you know, like they'll do a video and they'll show you the different bikes, but he's not gonna have too strong of an opinion because he still wants people to be buying these XPeaks so he can make some money, right? But moving on, so there's that one from e-bike reviews and Richard where he's comparing them all. And spoiler alert, the Lectric XPeak is a lot more wobbly than all of the other ones, and the frame is also a lot more thin, or a lot less wide. So that was one of the takeaways from this video. But so then I'm just gonna, I have this video just of an example of what people do with their e-bikes. So like here's a guy and he's got a video and he's saying he's got the XPeak step through and he wants to mount another battery on it. So I mean, this is what people do, guys, is they mount more batteries on their e-bikes. So this guy here, he's got it mounted on the kind of, I guess this is the down tube of the step through. But so he's got this kind of like a, you know, like a tank battery mounted on the down tube to the bottle, you know, the riv nuts for like the bottle cage or whatever. So I mean, this Lectric should be fully aware that when people buy an e-bike, they're gonna load all kinds of accessories and weight and stuff onto the e-bike, especially if it was designed to be a mountain bike with racks and carry all this cargo, and that's how it's advertised. So I mean, this is what people do, right? They put more batteries on it. And like Gary, right? Like he's trying to, like, this is how Gary rides. You know, he wants to put, Gary's probably going on 100-mile rides. He wants to put his bag in the front and his batteries in the back and go riding that thing for hours, and he's got to be able to hold some weight on it without wobbling around, you know? So those are kind of the problems. You got the pedal and the front wheel clearance where you can barely turn the bars and pedal the bike. You've got the wobbles where it seems like it's the rear rack and maybe like taller, heavier people are going to have more problems with it. So what is Lectric currently doing? I guess Lectric is sending people $150 credit, and they're suggesting that people use the pannier bags on the back rack. But I'm not entirely sure that that's even going to solve this problem, right? Because, so they're telling people to put the pannier bags on the back rack, but that's kind of similar to what Gary has done here with these two batteries, right? So, I mean, the batteries are kind of hanging off the sides of the back rack like a pannier bag would be. So, I mean, that's almost an identical setup as if you had a pannier bag on the back with 15 pounds in each side. Right? So I don't even know that what Lectric is suggesting and their $150 credit and their suggestion of like, well, hey, get some pannier bags and put it on the back rack and then don't load up the front rack. Well, it doesn't even seem like that's the solution because Gary tested it with weight in the back rack and it's still wobbling and there's still problems even on the high step version of the bike. So that was kind of new information to me. I thought that this problem only affected the step through, but it also affects the high step version of the bike, right? So So I don't think that Lectric's solution, like their $150 credit and like a pannier bag and some accessories, like, to me, it's not a solution, right? Like, the bike fundamentally has problems with it, like problems with the geometry of the bike and the design of the bike that just can't be changed, right? Like, the pedals are like 2 inches away from the front fender and the front wheel, and you can't turn the bars and pedal the bike at the same time, or your feet are going to hit the wheel when you're pedaling. So, I mean, it's just a flaw that, like, you can't put different crank arms on there and fix that. You can't, like, I don't think that putting your feet back further on the pedals is a solution. And it's just kind of amazing to me how many people will argue, like, oh, well, just put your feet back further on the pedals, or, oh, you don't need to turn the bars that far. I mean, it's unbelievable to me, guys. If you have this bike and you're having any problems with it and you can't ride it like you thought you were going to be able to ride it, you should return this bike. And what Lectric should be doing, and so let me know in the comments, guys, what do you think Lectric should be doing about this? Because I don't think what they're doing is solving the problem. Like, it's not a resolution. They're kind of just giving money to people to, like, hey, like, we'll give you some money, but you gotta be happy, right? Like, here's $150, but, you know, you gotta shut up. Like, we'll give you this $150 if you're happy with it. And from what I've seen, like, even the people that get the $150 from Lectric, and, you know, they get these accessories or whatever they get, like, they're still probably not happy with the bike because the problems are still there, right? It's like, well, here's $150 to put some accessories on your bike that has problems that can't be fixed. And it's like, man, this is just, like, too much for me. I could go on all day about this. What do you guys think? What can be done about this XPeak? I mean, it just seems like the design of the bike and the geometry of the bike has some problems that can't be fixed without kind of going back to the drawing board and making the whole bike like a little bit longer or something, so that the front wheel, that the wheelbase is longer and that front wheel is a little bit further away from the pedals. You know, I mean, it's just kind of like, it's made out of metal. Like, what can you do about it when there's just a problem with the design like that? And then the wobbles, I mean, it's just one of those things. Like, I keep going back to that analogy where you go to the truck dealership and you buy a truck because you want to put some stuff in the truck bed, and then you do that and it's wobbling all over dangerously, uncontrollably, and the truck dealership is telling you, well, hey, don't put weight in the back of your truck and we'll give you $150 to make it better, but you still got a truck that you can't put weight in the back of, and it just, like, boggles my mind, guys, like, how anybody would put up with this. So, you guys, let me know in the comments, what can be done about these problems? We've got the pedal clearance to the front wheel, that's a problem, and then we've got that death wobble that seems to be related to the weight distribution of the bike, and perhaps the rider weight and kind of like the rider position on the bike as well, because it seems like heavier, taller people are having more problems with this, and some people aren't having any problems. So personally, I think that Lectric has some problems on their hand, and they should probably recall at least the XPeak step through, if not both of these bikes. And I mean, something has to be done, because to me it just seems fundamentally wrong to advertise something like they have. It's a mountain bike and it's got these racks and you can take it off road, and right, it's supposed to be this adventure machine, and that's how it's advertised and marketed, and then you get it and they're telling you, oh, well, don't use the rack. Don't put the rack on your bike that we designed for it. Don't put too much weight on the front of it. You know, oh, wait a minute, we'll give you $150 and, you know, be careful. Like, it just seems fundamentally wrong, guys. So, What do you think? What do you think about what Lectric is doing? And what do you think, what should Lectric do about this? Just straight up recall them? I mean, it sucks, right? They spent all this time and these resources developing this new bike, this new product. And, you know, it's in production. They're producing these things, taking pre-orders. They're being delivered soon. And it's got these problems. Like, what would you do if you were Lectric? Would you be able to sleep at night knowing that this bike has some potential problems? I mean, you know, maybe not everybody has the problems, but it seems like definitely, you know, a certain demographic of people, you know, maybe like taller, heavier riders, do seem to have this problem, guys. So let me know in the comments, what should Lectric do? What do you think about this whole situation? What do you think is going to happen? Is this bike going to get recalled? Are they just kind of going to brush it under the rug and try and send people pannier bags to make it all better? Do you think that is going to resolve the problem? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, guys. I appreciate it. Like and subscribe. Build your own e-bike, and hopefully you won't have these problems. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.